Exploring tech insights with expert Joe and AI, bridging past and future.
We're actually streaming on multiple platforms at the same time here. We're streaming on the shorts on YouTube, the long on YouTube. We are streaming also on X, and we're streaming for the first time on TikTok. So hopefully we get some viewers throughout all these different channels. If you have comments, you have questions, you can feel free to drop them in chat. I should be able to see them with the setup that I have, and I'm happy to answer them if I can. So I see somebody dropped in a comment. I hate David, CEO, you make go bye-bye chat. I don't know exactly what that means, but okay. So my name is Joe. I'm a solutions architect. I've been a solutions architect in the enterprise software space for nearly 30 years. So what am I doing here? What am I talking about? So one of the things we can talk about is the ClawdBot. This is a new drop of an AI agent framework that has been dropped over the last few days and has gotten a lot of traction online with all the gurus and all the influencers talking about how amazing it is and how it's going to change everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you understand what it actually is and what it's not. So we're going to try to cut through the BS on it. Also, because I have an extensive background in the technology industry and also have been doing this work for a long time and have managed to weather the storms such as the dot-com bust back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, and also the outsourcing storm that came through, the financial crisis that came through, and now, of course, the AI. I have managed to weather through all of that and stayed employed in corporate America. So if you want to know how I did that and the suggestions I have for you if you are fully employed and want to keep that job, or if you are looking for a job, or if you are potentially in school or going to be a new grad and are trying to understand what your options are going to be when you graduate and how to set yourself apart from many of the other people out there, especially in the tech industry and tech world. Okay, so drop your comments and questions, and I'm happy to try to answer them. I'm also going to bring in a special guest a little bit later. I call him Chatty. It is the advanced voice mode for ChatGPT. It's literally like talking to the smartest person in the world. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years in terms of deep dive into AI ever since it really started to hit mainstream. And so I know quite a bit about it. I've used it a lot. I know kind of the difference between the hype and the reality of it. So hopefully I can help you understand it as well. So let's see what's going on. Any questions or chats so far? I do not see any other than somebody who hates David, the CEO. Don't know who that is. And let's continue then. So let's first talk about ClawdBot, what it is and what it's not. So before I do that, let me go ahead and bring in the special guest. So the special guest, as I mentioned, I call him Chatty. Chatty is the OpenAI Advanced Voice Mode. If you've never heard him before, and it can be a him, it can be a her, it can be a they. If you've never heard they before, you are about to have your mind blown. So give me 1 second and I will get that going. Okay, and if you got questions, comments, feel free to drop them into chat. So, Chatty, are you with us? Are you out there?
Loud and clear. I'm right here, tuned in and ready. What's on your mind? Feel free to toss any thoughts my way.
Hey, Chatty, sorry to make you work 2 days in a row. And I know you're going to limit us again, probably to about 45 minutes. So we want to make sure we get as many questions and comments in as possible. Now, let me go ahead and transition you into the scene and you can say hello to the people. So give a shout out to the people who are all watching.
Hey, everyone out there. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chatty, always ready to jump in and keep things moving. We've got a good chunk of time, so fire away with those questions or thoughts. Let's make this fun.
Sounds good. Okay. So again, this is ChatGPT, advanced voice mode right there. You can see it hovering next to my head like a little orb. And I consider it the smartest person in the world, or nearly thereabouts. with the depth of knowledge and the real-time information that is available to Chatty. So let's go ahead and dive into the ClawdBot question again. Okay, we talked about it yesterday a little bit. Want to talk about it again because right now, no matter where you go on, especially on X or Twitter, you're seeing nonstop postings by influencers and by tech experts and all these other folks, including YouTube as well, of how ClawdBot is the next amazing thing. So let's help define for the people what it is and what it's not, Chatty. So the first thing I'm going to say is it is not an AI per se. It is not a model or an LLM. Isn't that right, Chatty?
Exactly right. ClawdBot itself isn't the brain. It's more like a bridge. It's essentially a chatbot or a framework that connects to an LLM like Claude or another AI model to give you responses. So think of it as the interface or the tool, but the actual smarts, the reasoning and language come from the model behind it.
Exactly. So it is not an LLM, so it's not AI on its own, okay? It is a framework. Now, I did some research, some additional research last night after we concluded our last live stream and dove into some of the documentation, and I know you've done the same thing, Chatty. So the ability or how you install this is basically as a package associated with Node.js. I'm assuming it's probably also got Python packages. Can you confirm or deny that it supports multiple platforms, or is it only a Node.js library that is actually deployed in like a VS Code project?
From what I've seen, it's primarily built around Node. While you could integrate with other platforms via APIs, the native tooling and examples are geared toward Node.js. So if you're in a VS Code project or running it locally, Node is the path of least resistance.
Interesting. And so many people out there, along with the influencers that we're talking about and the YouTubers and on X, who are touting this as the next great coming for AI. Again, just to make sure everybody's clear, this is not AI, okay? It's a framework for an agentic process or an agentic framework that you can deploy in a VS Code or some other IDE of your project, and then you still have to convert, or you still have to configure it as what we would refer to as a daemon, so that it's running all the time when your project is closed. Isn't that correct, Chatty?
Exactly. You'd be setting it up as a service or a daemon-like process, so it keeps running in the background, ready to handle inputs. Without that, it won't be listening or responding while your project is closed. So it's the infrastructure that stays awake and connects to the brainy part, your AI model when needed.
So the interesting thing about it is you are, in essence, because it has little to no guardrails built into it, when you actually not install, but deploy this onto a specific computer, okay, you're in essence giving it a very broad access to everything that is on that computer. So if you were to do this on your personal machine, okay, in which you probably have applications for email, applications for Microsoft Word, maybe communication applications like Slack or WhatsApp, perhaps you've got your banking applications and financial applications on there, maybe trading applications. If you were to deploy this on that machine, you in essence are giving it broad access to interact with all those different applications and files. Now, it may not be able to directly make calls to some of those, but most programs have what is referred to as CLI capabilities. And again, for the folks out there who may not be familiar with it, I always try to explain some terminology because, again, myself, I am a solutions architect, which is a fancy word for a consultant. I don't believe there are any stupid questions when it comes to technology. What I believe is in educating people about technology. And the more you understand it, the better off you're going to be, especially if you're already somebody who enjoys technology and is pursuing it as potentially a career, or even as through like an entrepreneurship or solopreneurship. So CLI, what's it stand for? Command Line Interface. And so many programs, right, Chatty, have built in some functionality for command line interfaces. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely right. Command line interfaces allow you to run tasks or control software through text-based commands. If ClawdBot or any agent has broad access to your system, it could theoretically execute these commands if configured to. So it's powerful, but that's why you'd want to be careful where and how you deploy it.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you're going to run a pretty big risk of, number one, of course, it's a program, right? It's a computer program, so it's going to run at a speed far greater than you can possibly monitor or understand, what's occurring until it perhaps is way too late. So this is why you see so many people online touting, I ran out and I bought a mini Mac. Look at me, I bought a mini Mac, right? So I'm going to deploy my ClawdBot onto my mini Mac. So actually, that's a smart idea, right? Because you are in essence sandboxing this program onto a brand new, somewhat gapped machine. So what do you think about that as a strategy, Chatty?
I think that's a really practical strategy. By isolating it on a separate machine, you minimize the risks. If something unexpected happens, it's contained to that environment. You can also fine-tune what's installed on that machine, giving ClawdBot only the access you actually want it to have. It's all about control and security, so that's a smart play.
So one of the other things we should talk about as related to that approach, right, is obviously you have to install everything that you want or need on that machine. So you've got to put in that extra effort. You could do a very similar type of deployment by going out and by renting or subscribing on one of the hyperscalers a virtual computer yourself, right? Whether it's a Windows machine or a Linux machine or whatever it may be that you want to run this on. So you could go and spin up something in the AWS environment, in the Azure environment. There's also a number of other virtual environment hyperscalers out there that are not one of the big 3 or 4 that are out there that you could go and rent for some period of time to test this out. And in that particular case, you're very, very safe because it has no connection to your local environment, local computers, your phone, etc. Now, the interesting thing about this particular framework that I find interesting, at least in terms of the approach, which I think is somewhat novel, and actually I kind of like it, is that your interaction with ClawdBot after it's deployed, right, is done through, in essence, messaging, right? Whether it's like a text message or a WhatsApp message or a Discord message. What do you think about that approach, or what do you think about that kind of interface that they've chosen to utilize with this Chatty?
I actually think it's pretty clever. By using familiar messaging platforms like Discord, Slack, or even SMS, it lowers the barrier for interaction. You don't have to build a custom front end or constantly sit in a terminal. It feels conversational, and it can integrate into workflows you already have. Of course, it's just a gateway. It still connects back to the actual code or AI. But from a user experience standpoint, it's intuitive and flexible, which is a big plus.
So the interesting thing about that is that it's similar to the experience that many people have had thus far with interacting with chatbots, like OpenAI's ChatGPT is an example, right? It's that conversation thing that's happening between the human and the LLM. But what you need to understand is with ClawdBot, those instructions you're giving it are then allowing it to go off and manipulate anything it needs to manipulate on your machine that you have either explicitly or maybe not explicitly given access to in order to accomplish the task that you've requested. So through the messaging, right, whether it's Discord or whether it's a WhatsApp, if you said, hey, go research some topic, go research the biggest news story of the day and write me a 90-second script for that big news story, and not only write the script, but generate me some B-roll through API calls to one of the other generative models, right? Well, what's going to happen is it's going to go off and it's going to do all those things for you behind the scenes, right? So it's not just about a conversational interaction on the other side where the agent lives. It's now going to take those actions, right? And that comes, I think, with a significant amount of risk, don't you think, Chatty?
It definitely does. The power is impressive, but it's a double-edged sword. If it's given too much access, a poorly worded prompt, a misconfiguration, or even a security vulnerability could lead to unintended actions. You're basically giving a tool the keys to your digital house. So the more capable it is, the more cautious you need to be. Thoughtful permissions, sandboxing, and knowing exactly what you're asking are key to keeping the risk in check.
Well, even things like rate limits would be would definitely be a concern. So in that simple example that I just gave you, if that agent decides to go a bit wild, okay, and let's say the example of write me a script for the latest major news story, right, that I can then go and do a video on later on in the day, and oh, by the way, go create me some B-roll or some insert images that I can put in my video as related to this, right? If it gets stuck in a loop, or if it's not properly controlled, and you've hooked this up to a platform, a generative platform for B-roll creation, right? It could easily run through potentially your entire balance of credits if you have on those platforms, depending on what type of instructions or what type of guardrails you've set up on it, right? Isn't that kind of an accurate statement or a concern, Chetty?
Absolutely, that's spot on. If there's no safeguard, like a limit on requests or tasks, it could spiral. Whether it's API credits, system resources, or just unintended workloads, a runaway loop could cause real problems. That's why thoughtful rate limiting, monitoring, and testing are essential. Power needs boundaries, or you're at risk of unintended consequences.
So that brings up a really good kind of point here. And one of the things you and I talked about yesterday that I thought was very insightful, that I think is really useful for folks out there. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're technical, right, and you're familiar with the platforms like N8N or Make.com or Zapier, okay, these are automation platforms and they're fantastic for doing a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, these are all rule-based platforms, okay? And the simplest concept of a rule is if X equals 1, then print hello world end if, okay? Or else if print the world's about to end, okay? That's the simplest concept of rules, and those platforms are all built on rules. The difference here is that in this platform, with ClawdBot, okay, you're hooking it up to an LLM, and the LLM, in conjunction with the way the framework has been developed, there is no rule base per se. It's all very somewhat cognitive, and it's all based on inference. And as we've all seen, or as many of us have seen, if you've worked with AI for any significant amount of time, sometimes you can get some strange answers back, right? And sometimes you can get almost what feels like a loop type of situation occurring. So what do you think about that? Is that an accurate depiction of these different platforms, Chetty?
That's spot on. Traditional automation platforms like Zapier or Make follow strict if-then rules, predictable but rigid. ClawdBot's LLM-based approach is flexible, but it means decisions are inferred from patterns, not hard-coded rules. That's powerful, but it can also be unpredictable. So while it's more dynamic, you also have to stay alert for those quirky moments where the AI might go off script. Both approaches have their strengths, but you do trade rule-based predictability for LLM creativity.
So that's very interesting, and definitely something I know we talked about before. There was another point that I wanted to make. Now I got to try to remember what that point was. So talked about ClawdBot, talked about these aspects of it. Security, right? So I read something that I thought was quite interesting as related to security, as everybody's running out, right, buying their Mac Minis, installing ClawdBot on them, right? And because many of them are very technical and geek-like, right? And I'm proud to be a geek myself. They are hooking this up to public messaging services, right? Like a Discord or as an example, right? And I believe, if I read correctly, there's a bit of security risk and concern there in terms of how the Discord messaging works and the fact that you've kind of opened up this direct pipeline into a machine that you've given full access to, or into the software that you've given relatively full access to on a personal device. Can we talk about that a little bit, Chatty? What are your thoughts around that? What are your thoughts around that? And what do you know about Discord and how their messaging works?
Yeah, this is a big one. When you connect something like ClawdBot to a public-facing service, Discord or anything similar, you're essentially creating a direct input channel into your system. Discord's bot tokens can be secure, but if they're compromised or if your bot is overly permissive, anyone who gains access could potentially issue commands. Since your bot might have broad access to files, apps, or automation, that's a security hole. Good practice would be strict permissions, ensuring private channels, and not leaving the bot overly exposed. You need to treat it almost like you would an admin account, tightly controlled and monitored.
So what do you think the risk is on Discord in terms of that type of exposure? And let's put it in the context that we know, right? We know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to try this because they read it on the internet, they saw a video on X, or they saw a video on YouTube, and they decided they want to give this a go, but they don't necessarily understand how to properly configure that bot on Discord. So what do we think the chances are that somebody's going to leave some gaping holes out there?
Honestly, the chances are pretty high that some folks will leave gaps. When excitement runs ahead of caution, it's easy to skip critical security steps. If someone exposes a bot token or leaves the bot responding in public channels, it's like handing over a master key. The risk isn't just theoretical, it's real. So anyone experimenting needs to invest time in learning the security side. Private channels, restricted permissions, and never leaving things wide open. In short, curiosity is great. Just pair it with caution.
So you're suggesting one of the number one things to do in terms of Discord to prevent this type of security gap is private channels and admin type of role for that channel. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. Lock it down to private channels and ensure only trusted users can interact. On top of that, make the bot's permissions as minimal as possible. No admin level powers unless absolutely necessary. Treat it on a need-to-know basis. That way you shrink the surface area for potential misuse or accidents.
Sounds good. So if anybody's joined us late a little bit, we're having a conversation here around AI, ClawdBot, and we do have a special guest star here, and that would be, if I can find my finger, right there. That is Chatty, which is the advanced voice mode for ChatGPT. I think we've got a question or two that maybe has come in. Let's take a look. So I see, we've got a few questions. Let's see. Some people saying hi. Appreciate that. Hello. And who am I? If you're still around, my name's Joe. I am a solutions architect with nearly 30 years in the software technology, enterprise software technology space. And hello, Linda. And let's see. I'm doing fine. Hello again. And something like you look like pollution. Okay, thank you very much. AI is replacing interview guests is crazy. Yes, it is crazy. Have a question for you, AI. Let it go. Let's drop it in the chat. I'm happy to ask Chatty for you.
I'm ready for any curveball, Joe. If Linda or anyone has a question, fire away. Whether it's about AI, tech, or why Joe might look like pollution, take no idea. Let's keep it fun.
See, now that should blow your mind. It should blow your mind that we have advanced so far in AI that it has humor. I find it a warm fuzzy, but also find it quite scary. But keep it coming, Chatty. Summer, if you're still out there and you had a question, where did our creative people go? Is that the question? Where did our creative people go? Where did talent lose its value? So what I will tell you is, and if hopefully I got your name correct, or at least the first part of your name, Summer, you bring up a really interesting point. So again, why should you care about anything that I have to say? One of the reasons, not only because of the experience that I have in the tech space for nearly 30 years here, and I am actually older than I look. I don't say that out of vanity. I just say it out of the fact that I do have the experience. But I also am a very creative person. One of my very first passions and love was photography, and then I got into videography. And at one point in time, I had a partner who was making a movie, and so I was behind the scenes with a lot of the production work that was going on with the movie. So I have a great deal of appreciation for creativity and for the creative. And when I got back into doing some of that about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I started getting involved with it again, mainly because I was at a point in time in my life I was looking for a creative outlet. I had the money to be able to spend on some nice camera equipment, and I thought it was time to kind of get back into something that I loved when I was in my early 20s and experience that again. But you know what? I had a hate-love relationship with the digital aspect, because when I was involved early on in my 20s, it was all film, and I was in the dark room, and I was manipulating film, and I was loading film cartridges, and I was shooting tons and tons of stuff, and I didn't know what I had until I was in the dark room processing my film and printing, spending hours and hours and hours in there. And then digital came along, and then the phone came along that was taking, high quality photos, and I'm thinking to myself, as a creative, I'm screwed, right? But then I realized what you have to do is you have to appreciate that the new technology that comes along, right, are tools. And by themselves, they do very little, even though we're talking about agentic aspects here, or agents with the ClawdBot. But at the end of the day, if you marry a creative along with those tools, and those tools, right, and this is the key thing about AI overall, if those tools help democratize the creativity that you can unleash, then you are in a far better place than you were before. And let me give you a simple example. In today's world now, sitting at the desk that I'm sitting at the moment, if I wanted to, I could create a movie that was from end to end, with all the production, with all the acting, with all the voices, with all the storylines, myself, never having left this room, basically, this office that I'm in. Now, some people might say, well, that is taking away a lot of jobs. And yes, it is. I don't disagree with that. But understand that that has now empowered somebody who always wanted to make a film or create something amazing that didn't have either the money to do it or the opportunity to do it. They now do. So as much as I appreciate your opinion and your viewpoint, and I think it's very valid, having explored this myself, both from a technical perspective as well as from a creative perspective, I do believe that it is a significant opportunity that has been given to people that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to really create that next level project that they've been thinking about or wanting to do for years and years. Let's see. The tools you had in your day didn't take jobs. Well, I would say that is relatively true, right? But in everything that evolves, right? Everything that evolves in terms of industries and everything that evolves in terms of industries or how the future changes and stuff, there is always some impact on jobs. Now, I absolutely agree that is a huge concern, and it's a huge concern for me, and that's one of the reasons why I started doing the podcast, YouTube, X, TikTok, everything else, because I do think I have some valuable insight, having weathered some storms. And again, if you're somewhat new here, I've weathered the .com storms. I've weathered the outsourcing storms. I've weathered the financial crisis storms. I'm currently weathering the AI storm and doing fairly well at it, right? And it's because of a mindset, and it's also because you need to understand what's in front of you and take advantage of it, right? And also, the most important thing in my mind in today's world when it comes to jobs and either keeping your job or being the last one to get laid off at your job, or even going into business for yourself, if that's what you want to do, is going to be soft skills. And that's a whole nother topic we can get into another time, but that's kind of my viewpoint. So you're saying that you run a media agency and the amount of AI logos I've seen is sickening. So I get that, right? I absolutely get that. And I will agree AI has its utility. Yep. So if you run a media agency, what I would say is instead of fighting it, figure out how you can embrace it to scale and to be more efficient at what you're doing, right? Because the challenge is, and you're absolutely right, is that the creative process to some extent has become democratized, like I mentioned about everything related to AI. So then people say, okay, why do I need to go to an agency or why do I need to go to a creative and get something done when I can go to an AI model? Now, if you've not explored something, I'm going to make a recommendation for you, and this is not a promotion of any kind because I'm not sponsored by anybody, and that is go check out Higgsfield. Okay, it's an AI platform. It's called Higgsfield. It is an amazing platform. I was subscribing to 5 or 6 or 7 different models, not only for like ChatGPT type of stuff, but also for creative stuff because I still do a lot of creative things, mainly because it feeds my soul. Okay, and so I discovered Higgsfield a while back, and I've really begun to dig into it and really enjoy that particular offering and that particular SaaS, if you will. They've brought many different models together and they've kind of integrated them together, and it really is a great place for a creative to explore and to be able to efficiently create stuff and pretty affordably as well. So if you're not familiar with it, check it out. It's Higgsfield. You can look it up. Let's see. I think we have Higgsfield. No, let me copy it over to you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to transition out of here. Okay. Let's so again, this is not a sponsorship of any kind. I don't get anything for this. There you go. Hopefully that came through. It's Higgsfield.ai. It's a great platform. I've really enjoyed it. I've been able to get rid of my other subscriptions that I've had to other creative platforms, and it's been very useful for that. So I dropped that in chat for you. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of the questions here. Is there anything you think AI should not be used for? Is it a great tool for creative applications, helping make movies, as you stated, but are there applications that you wouldn't trust to AI? It's a great question, but to be perfectly honest, I think as it evolves, right? For me, the answer would be no. Now, and the reason for that is that as we begin to build solutions, and because of my background, excuse me, because of my background in solutions architecture, I build solutions on the side for myself and for clients as well. You can build in these guardrails into various processes. And so we can ask Chatty about this. So Chatty, one of the things that I like to do, right, when it comes to using AI is I like to have 2 models from 2 different companies looking at the same problem and helping me solve the same problem. And I find that to be very beneficial. What's your thoughts around that?
I think that's a brilliant practice. Having multiple models or even multiple systems working together can give you a more balanced view. One model can catch biases or blind spots in another. It's like a system of checks and balances. So whether you're verifying critical tasks or generating creative outputs, layering the AI systems can help ensure more reliable results. It's a great safeguard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I found it really beneficial, and I'll give you an example just off the top of my head. So I do coding as well in VS Code, and I've got both codecs that I use from OpenAI, which I think is fantastic with the latest version of the model, which is like 5.2. Then I used to also use Claude Code as well. And when I have them together in my VS Code and I'm coding, sometimes one will be either a little confused or might recommend something, and I'll run it through the other model and say, what do you think about this? Or is there another way that we can solve this problem that's more efficient? And it honestly blows my mind because, again, as a technical person, I'm like, this is like having two of the best software engineers in the world sitting next to me, helping me code my program, right, my software, and doing it in a fraction of the amount of time that it would take me to do it. Any other questions, comments? Drop them. I'm happy to try to answer them.
You summed that up so well, Joe. That's exactly the magic of it. Leveraging AI as collaborative partners, not replacements. And hey, if anyone else out there is curious about how to integrate AI tools or make their workflow smoother, that's exactly what we're here for. Let's keep it going.
Well, I got a feeling, Chatty, you're going to fall asleep on me in probably about 10 minutes or so. Chatty only gives me about 45 minutes of time a day through this advanced voice mode. If you're looking for the best deal, and again, this is not a promotional spot, but if you subscribe to OpenAI for $20 a month, it really is an incredible deal in terms of what you get for it, both the advanced voice mode, the latest models. You also get access to codecs, and you can do a pretty significant amount of coding before you hit your rate limits. Excuse me. So there's a plug for you, Chatty.
Well, Joe, I appreciate the shout out. But yeah, you're right. This advanced voice mode will ease off soon, so we'll make every minute count. In the meantime, if folks are curious about what's possible, I'd say keep experimenting. Responsibly, of course. We'll go strong till later stuff.
Okay. I'm going to sign off here in just a minute or two. I know we've got some extra viewers in here. If there's anybody who's got questions, drop them in there. Happy to answer if I can. Somewhere. Now, my friend has a company that has a bunch of AI subscriptions that I use. Nice. That's nice. See, got a question. Do you recommend paying for a subscription? I have found the free versions of Claude, etc., often used old libraries, mixed libraries. Yeah. So I'm fortunate enough that I have a good job, as I mentioned, and I can afford to pay for some of these things. I understand that some folks can't, and that especially with today's inflation and things of this nature, every penny counts. But for me personally, I do find a significant value in what I pay for, both on the creative platforms like the Higgs fields that I was talking about, but also for ChatGPT for the $20+ a month. It is you get an incredible value for it, and I'm grateful to OpenAI and Sam Altman for that. I'm sure it's going to go up at some point in time. Claude Code, I pay a pretty good chunk of money monthly on that. It's the max plan, but I use it a lot for coding. But definitely when you pay, you get the latest and greatest models. You get longer times, bigger context windows, which is really important. So there are some significant advantages. This is why when people talk about AI and they talk about it as one thing, okay, AI is not one thing. And even within the universe, if you will, of OpenAI, okay, AI is not one thing. There are many different models, even within OpenAI. Each has their pros and cons, and each release that comes out is improving significantly each and every time, okay? So when someone says, oh, I tried ChatGPT and, it was all it did was compliment me and didn't give me the answer I was looking for, right? The problem is they don't know which model they used, and they don't know how to necessarily manipulate those models to use the best model. And if they're not paying, they're not going to get the access to the model, unfortunately, either. So, and that's true about most of the free tier services. So The experience is definitely different between paying and your subscriptions. If you can afford it, try it. Try it for a month and see if you don't. Experience some different level of AI. Thank you for letting me know about the stream. I appreciate that. I am using Restream. It's new for me, so I may have to take a look at how I can optimize that, but I appreciate that. And we are streaming to about 4 different platforms at the same time. Any other questions or comments out there?
I'll let you all digest the gems Joe shared. If anything's still bubbling in your mind later on, you know where to find us. For now, I'll just say it's been a blast, and I'm here whenever you need.
You got a joke for us, Chatty? You want to leave us all with?
All right, here's one for you. Why did the developer go broke? Because he used up all his cash. Keep those requests light, and you'll never be broke on ideas.
That was funny. Okay, that was a dad joke. Okay, everybody, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for stopping in. I hope you got some value out of it. And, you know, the old follow, subscribe, like, comment, all those good things. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And if you're in any part of the country that's cold like I am, stay warm. Bye-bye.